Hi, my name is Dave Pullen. I would like to welcome you to Portland Film Beat. My guest tonight, these two are what I would call the epitome of guerrilla filmmakers in the Portland area. They got a camera, they got a script, they got sound equipment, they go and shoot a film. And I'd like to introduce you to Brian Hiltner, and Michelle Vincig. How you doing, guys?
Hey,
Hi.
Thanks for being
Thanks
here.
for having us.
I've been on a set with Brian, and he does a great job. He shows up and just shoots it. He knows what he wants, and he gets it done, and I really like that. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you met Michelle, and she had a camera, was that like the icing on the cake?
Well, I met Michelle, actually, she was going to break down the script for this feature Slippage that I'm still working on, but I met her on her porch, and she was on pain medication at the time. This is a good story.
All right. Yeah.
And so she was a little woozy, but she had to break down the script, and after that, I think she read the script and said, "This guy's really weird."
In a good way.
Is that what attracted you to him? Then,
Yeah,
right?
the weirdness.
Okay.
Definitely.
Michelle is a blast to be around. She's got a little bit of a shy side to her, but the one thing that's really cool about her is she tells you she's kind of not, she doesn't mind being vulnerable. She told me about things that happened in her life that a lot of, they weren't really bad or anything, but a lot of girls wouldn't tell you it happened, you know. So anyway, let's get started. Brian, you went to school right here in Beaverton at Jesuit, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And really, a lot of your filmmaking experience is just hands-on, is that correct?
It is, yeah, and a lot of watching movies, gradually getting from just liking like James Bond movies in high school to then getting into Hitchcock and then getting into like European cinema and stuff like that. And just watching a lot of movies is basically how I learned about making movies.
Okay, how many films have you made? Even shorts and stuff like
I mean, shorts, I feel like we've collaborated on probably like a dozen.
Yeah, at least a dozen.
Yeah, and then maybe 3. I'm trying to finish my 3rd feature. The first one I tried to forget about, but we also made
won't
Let's
let me
Bury the
watch it.
Hatchet. Yeah, we made Let's Bury the Hatchet that Michelle shot and you appeared in.
Right.
And that's kind of a short
that?
feature.
I should talk about that in a second, but I will. Michelle, where did you train?
I went to school in Baltimore,
Okay.
and I have a film production degree. So it's a small school no one's ever heard of, but
Okay, cool.
did the job.
Brian kind of puts Michelle in some precarious situations sometimes, like Rich Case, is it Cason?
Rich Cashin. Yeah.
Cashin, screaming. If you know Rich, he can be kind of insane, and she's this far from the camera going, Brian Hiltner.
Yeah,
That
I
was the
usually
funniest
end
thing.
up underneath.
It was underneath,
The
yeah, and it was,
actors.
yeah, it was pretty, it was, yeah, but you put her, it's great that you guys work so well together. I mean, it's really wonderful. Tell us briefly about your next film's premise, and it's called, again?
It's called Elena Vance. So
All right.
it's a short film. It's probably going to be like 25 minutes.
Okay.
That's going to be made in December. And it combines kind of a suspense plot, kind of a Hitchcockian type thing. But then from starting like a genre film like that, it kind of branches out to be more of an existential type of movie, more about relationships and emotion and stuff.
All right. Mm-hmm. And what will this next film, say about the world we live in? Because it's going to be different from your other ones, like Birdman and Let's Bury the Hatchet. This one's going to be more of a character.
Well, I think all the
Thriller?
films, all the films I've written, the films Michelle and I have worked on, they all have kind of a Twilight Zone-y thing going on. So sometimes they're Twilight Zone type comedies, sometimes dramas.
Always dark. A
Yeah,
little bit.
always
I know
dark.
that they're humorous.
Always a little off. Yeah, and usually they're humorous. This one, I think, eventually it focuses on, I think, the transience of things in life, how things pass, and how, yeah, just how life goes on. I mean, as I go on in life, I feel like life goes a little faster, and
Okay.
it's more interesting. The main characters in the movie are high schoolers, and just kind of those things that high schoolers get into that seem like it's the entire world at the time. Like, oh, I
And
met
then
this
10 years
girl,
later,
that
it's
sort of
like,
thing.
what the heck was
Exactly.
I thinking?
That
Okay.
didn't mean anything. Yeah.
And do you both collaborate on the writing? Do you do most of it and you kind of help fill in, or?
We have kind of a good balance going because he's really good at the writing and the character development, and my skills are more suited for really taking someone's ideas and making them
Better.
realistic, you know,
Oh,
and
realistic?
actually
Yeah,
will
no, I
happen, you
understand.
know,
Trust me, my wife helps me a lot with that.
and organizing. So, yeah.
Briefly describe, the appeal you think that this film will have for audiences.
I think probably provides the same appeal that most independent movies provide, which is something that Hollywood doesn't have. I mean, we either go into dark, strange places that most movies don't go, or I think it's just the perspective. I think my movies are pretty personal, and I think my perspective and Michelle's unique perspective comes through in our stuff.
Okay, so Michelle, how long have you been a cinematographer?
Well, I guess it depends what you would call a cinematographer. I mean, I've been...
Were you doing a lot of it before you went to college?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think for my 10th birthday, we made a movie for the party. So pretty much since I was in elementary school, I've always had a camera in my hand. So it's kind of a logical step to keep going.
All right, cool. Is that the same? Is that true for you too, Brian?
Yeah, I think there's a point in high school where my dad got me, you know, the iMac and the camera combo, right, when those started working together really well, and that was, I started making movies at that point, and it was like, oh my God, I can do the same thing that I've been watching all this time. So. Right.
Okay. Cool. And this film, what was the name of the next film? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Elena Vance.
Elena Vance. How's this film going to distinguish itself from some of your other works? And I think we talked about it briefly, but kind of expand upon that.
One thing, sometimes I finish a movie and I think, you know, I'm still kind of playing it safe. I'm making genre movies and I really want to branch out and try and talk about the things I really worry about, you know, the big things we all think about, life and death and all that stuff. So I like starting, it's kind of like a murder mystery at first, and then it branches out and becomes more of a character piece. And so I think that's how it's going to kind of advance itself past some of the stuff I've done before.
So films like the Birdman Down...
The Birdman Who Lives Down Terrell Lane.
Right. And Let's Bury the Hatchet, those are the two feature-length type films you've made.
Well, Birdman's about 25 minutes, yeah, and Hatchet's about an hour long, so it's almost a feature, yeah.
Right. What experiences in your life went into the writing of those, or were they just kind of because you've got a crazy imagination, or both?
Well, usually in the writing process, I start by saying, okay, what do I have at my disposal that gives me an advantage? Maybe you have a great actor, or maybe you have somebody really...
You had Rich.
Or you have, a really angry person like Rich Cashin. I say, well, how can I write something for Rich where he can just scream all the time?
Yeah,
so
it was kind of the catalyst.
And that was, that was the whole reason to make that one. And Birdman, it was kind of, I mean, it's, again, just kind of a genre piece, but I like the idea of a gay man going out to a section of Beaverton where they're much more conservative and seeing how that goes and the conflict that goes on. So that's the sort of thing that interests me, yeah.
Right. Anyway, so... Let's already talk about what's your favorite part of filmmaking. We're going to cut away to a little clip here that Brian has made, but let's talk about your favorite part of filmmaking.
Well,
Michelle, go ahead.
My favorite part is definitely the more you shoot, there's always this moment between when you say, you know, when you start rolling and when a person is kind of coming into their character and actually, you know, action. And there's always, I find this moment that's captured, and if you're careful, you can catch it without people noticing that you're filming.
Right.
And those moments
so you start the camera way before action.
Yeah, and I try to do it a lot and not let, you know, not let on, because it always captures this moment where someone is between themselves and this character that they've been learning, and it's always such an interesting thing to see just develop on the screen. So that's definitely my favorite.
Right, and you see that every time because you're right behind the camera.
Well, and there's times where she shoots that, and then I get into the editing room and I say, okay, I'm going to use that moment.
Yeah, so he didn't know I was shooting, or
So what's your favorite part of filmmaking then?
You know, I love being on set and shooting, but to me it's full of anxiety because you're wondering, okay, I got to keep the vision together. I don't want anything to be diluted in the process. So the editing room, I think when things finally start coming together and you have a shot that cuts together with another shot and the music starts coming, that's when you see the movie come to life. That's just been on page the whole time. That's really exciting. All
right. We're going to get to your least favorite thing, but before we do that, we're going to show a clip, and it's called Present.
Yep, it's from the movie Present.
And so we're going to cut away to Present right now, and we'll be right back.
Where are you coming from? Or going to?
Don't know where I'm going. Just kind of enjoying the ride. I spent the weekend in Paella, doing some fishing.
Where's your fishing gear?
I shared it with a friend.
You catch anything?
Oh yeah, big old trout, like this. Anyways, people don't really fish to catch fish.
What do they fish for then?
The company.
That was fun to watch, Brian, but I do have to ask, there was some controversy about this one, wasn't there?
Yeah. So going along with our favorite parts of filmmaking and our least favorite parts of filmmaking, Michelle, do you want to?
Yeah. So, you know, an amazing thing about filmmaking as an art is that you get to kind of put yourself and your soul out there for other people to see, but you also get to put yourself and your soul out there for other people to see.
It's got a duplicitous.
Yeah. So if someone is critical, or if there's someone has strong emotions about what you've presented, it's not only a sign of a successful film, but it's also can be very upsetting if the reaction is very negative, or because it's almost like it's an attack on your person.
Right, because if you feel it's part of you, you've put so much into
exactly.
it.
So this particular film we were very proud of, but it evoked some pretty strong emotions when it was screened that took us a while to. I think we're still dealing with it a little bit.
Right.
Yeah,
really?
and we've kind of seen that everything we've made since then, really, we have to picture it as, people's reactions are going to be based on their own experiences and how they see the
And that doesn't
events
mean you should
unfold.
filter out what you're doing
Right,
at all, but,
but it
you
does
just have to be conscious of it.
cause
Right, so-
responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
I had this acting coach a number of years back. He's still here in Portland. His name is Barry Hunt. And he said, David, sometimes, and he showed us some clips of some very famous actors doing some very great scenes. And he goes, I want you to watch these scenes. And we watched them, and he said, what are they doing? And he goes, they're doing nothing but breathing in the emotion. He goes, like that. And he said, and then the audience paints on you what they need and what they want.
Yeah.
And I did that in a film. And at the end of the film, this girl comes up to me and goes, your emotion was just so amazing. And Carol and I were walking away. I go, all I did was breathe in the emotion. I didn't do anything else.
That's
it was
one
all
thing
her.
I always,
and so what you're saying is that this girl put herself out there, but she didn't like what took place on screen, which kind of bothers me because you put yourself in a vulnerable place as an actor. You should accept that.
Yeah.
Because from what I've seen of that, and I've watched that trailer a couple of times, nothing seems that awful to me.
It's tough, and we get different, people have seen it all the way through, and they say, what was the question here?
It
But then you have
just
people
goes to
who
show
come
you.
from different experiences, pretty specific experiences, and they see it a different way. It's like that experiment, I forget who and what. No, it was where people were shown images of like just a child sitting on a chair, and then and they have to describe what is this child feeling. Oh, this child's very sad, or oh, this child. It just all depends
On how the person is looking at it, right?
But it's a very important lesson.
I hope you haven't let that impact how you shoot films or write or work with actors.
I would like to say
you can't.
We can't. Yeah, but it's hard. It does. It has.
I'm sure it does, but you got to let that go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
really
as far as
do.
coming up with the ideas, it doesn't affect me at all. As long as you're coming up with an idea, you have a strong moral
Right,
center. You do have to be responsible with art. But
Okay, so the least favorite part of filmmaking for you, I take it, is when
Just trying to separate yourself
from it,
from it. Yeah.
from the negative part of it. Wow, that's such a great answer, because I'm glad that you two were vulnerable enough to come forward and say that, because I've never had anybody in here who would say that they had such an experience and to talk about how it's impacting you currently.
so I mean, now, we feel fine about it now. But I mean, that night we were staring at the ceiling all night,
We didn't
wondering
sleep.
what we did. And so many people were angry. And it was an interesting experience. It was very enlightening. But I still consider that the best film I've
I would
worked
agree.
on. So.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know what? I was one goofy character in your film, and sometimes I've looked at that and go, man, I was goofy. But you know what? It was fun. I enjoyed it. You made me goofy, and I enjoyed being goofy. Hey, what do you want? So as a writer, how do you attack screenwriting? I mean, there's all these different ways. There's the Blake Snyder. They put out the cards. I myself, I write the beginning, the end. I come up with the middle. And then all of a sudden I let it sit, and all of a sudden these scenes start percolating. I know it's a slower process, but for me it works a lot better. How do you work? How do you do it?
So I just think about what I have at my disposal, and usually there's something that tips off an idea. Again, with Hatchet, it was, okay, I need to write something for Rich Cashin where he can scream. And for this new one, the Elena Vance movie, I found out that I have somebody who lives on Peacock Lane that has all the Christmas lights. And so I
Oh,
have
so it's going to be shot there.
and I have an interior that I can shoot in there. So now the whole movie.
Oh, it's going to be.
it
Now I
starts
understand why you're
at
saying you're going to
Peacock
shoot it
Lane.
at Christmas time because
Right.
you're going to use Peacock Lane.
Right.
Well,
Oh,
hopefully we can
that's
get
nice.
Right. Yeah, so a lot of times it starts with that. Sometimes I think of a title, and then I have no idea what the movie's about, but the title says something or has a certain atmosphere.
Cool.
And then it all comes from that, yeah.
Right. All right. Good. Great. Since you like to write, what is your favorite screenplay?
You know, I mean, I could say things like, I like Robert Towne screenplays. He did Chinatown. He did The Last Detail with Jack Nicholson. But nowadays...
Both films were Jack Nicholson.
Right, yeah. And so he writes specifically for Jack and for his voice, and you can tell when you watch those movies. Nowadays, I would say I almost like screenplays that aren't focusing as much on great writing, but focusing on maybe loose writing and providing a loose structure, something like this movie Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson, where the filmmaking process begins, and then because it's kind of a loose script, you allow for the audience to get involved and to, like we said, when an actor kind of gives a more blank performance, the audience will project all these things
Right.
onto the actor. It's the same thing if you leave your movie with kind of a loose structure, I think, or kind of a skeletal structure. The audience can fill a lot of that in and become part of
The audience
process,
wants to be
you know?
part of the film.
Yeah.
That's why we go, to be part of it. And sometimes when they give us all the answers, it's no fun.
Right.
It's boring, yeah. As a writer, as a director, excuse me, how do you work with the actors?
Well, I've worked with you, of course.
Yeah. I've noticed you let us have give us room to do our own thing, but then you get in there and tweak it.
I think, yeah, you got to work with actors, I think, the same way you work with everybody else. As long as you start out saying, this is the vision, everybody understands what the vision is, then you can let everybody loose and they can come up with things. And then you can rein them in or let them, you know, have a little bit more leash or whatever. But you have to allow people to bring things to the role. You can't just control everything. So I'm not a huge fan of the Hitchcock approach where you really
Control it.
control everything, because actors are going to bring things that you couldn't possibly think of.
They
you
do.
know? Yeah. And
They do.
if they understand the vision, they're going to create your vision, and you didn't even know that was part of your vision, but it is.
Right, they can surprise you.
Right, exactly.
They can bring things that you're like, I never thought of it
So
that
I think
way, right?
you'd probably agree the best part of filmmaking are those little surprises and like
Yeah.
those moments. You know?
The moment
what you
before,
don't
where
expect.
you don't let them know you're recording.
Right.
You're sneaky, now I know. Now that we know that Michelle is the cinematographer, how do you guys work together as a team? I mean, I've been there, but talk about that a little bit with the audience here.
Well, at least we try to be as organized as possible from the beginning, just so that
But
we can.
you know what? It's good that you
always-
do that, because
yeah.
when the inevitable problems
Because then
come in,
it falls apart. You at least have the structure that you can
Right.
fall back on. Yeah, we. I think we just have to make sure that there's snacks on set. That's a key. Yeah,
is that it?
yeah. When it's
As
snack
long as we
time
have
and we need to
snacks,
step
yeah.
away and regroup.
Michelle
Okay.
needs snacks from time to time. Absolutely.
Okay. Right, no, that's good. Is that good? Who's your favorite director for you? And then we'll ask Michelle here.
I have so many choices. I would say probably Michelangelo Antonioni right now. He's this Italian director. He made a lot of movies in the 50s and 60s and 70s, and he worked with people like Jack Nicholson in the 70s and then a lot of Italian actors in the 60s. But he kind of does that thing that I'm trying to do with my Christmas movie, where you start out with this movie that's a very genre-type plot, and then it branches out and becomes something else, more of like a character piece.
Okay. You know what I'm really liking is you keep bringing up past directors and stuff, which means to me that you've actually studied films. You don't just watch the new ones you're actually studying what's going on with them, because I think there's a lot to be learned from past directors.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't think I'm a great director yet, but I think an advantage that I do have is that I've seen a lot of those movies, because I think some of those directors are just, you know, the top of the heap. And there's a few directors today that are like that, but there were so many back then in the 60s and 70s.
For me, it
yeah.
would be Sidney Lumet. That's who I'd like to work with. I mean, he did, 12 Angry Men and The Verdict.
Yeah.
He did a lot of things. He was making films before, well, I was a little boy. Maybe I had been born. I don't know. And so who's your favorite director?
Definitely Kubrick, I think. 'cause
Stanley
he-
Kubrick? Okay.
Yeah.
See, an older guy. He's not around anymore. He died.
No,
didn't
he
No.
passed. Yeah. But I think just he captures those quiet moments so well that we were talking about. Just those, long takes where people can just be in the moment. and
they don't really
in
have
the
long
scene.
takes sometimes anymore.
Yeah.
And that's like my
It's
favorite
kinda
thing about
rare.
directing is long takes. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite film?
My favorite film is probably this Polanski movie called Cul-de-sac, I would say, that I've seen recently. But it does that thing I was talking about where the structure.
Is it a newer Polanski film or one of
It's,
the older ones?
it's
Because
one
he
of
was
his-
kicked out of
it's-
the country.
it's
Well, he wasn't
early,
kicked
so-
out, but he's not
Well,
coming back.
he made it in England, so but it was before he did all his hits and everything, so it was the early '60s. But it really has a loose structure, so it allows for a lot of improvisation. These actors are all bringing things that aren't in the script. A bunch of great actors involved in this atmosphere of this little island in England where it's not an island until the tide comes in. So everybody arrives at this castle, and then the tide comes in. They're all stuck there at this castle, and these weird things ensue over the night. So it's kind of a comedy. It's a little bit of a horror movie, a little bit of everything. So.
Okay, good. And your favorite film, Michelle?
It might be kind of cliche, but 2001 is definitely,
The Space Odyssey?
yeah.
Okay. No,
absolutely.
it's not a cliche. If that's what your favorite
That's in
film
my top 5 too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great film. Okay, what kind of inspiration do you draw? Well, for Cul-de-sac, if you're going to be shooting over there on Peacock Lane,
Yeah, I
that-
think
that's got to be a little bit.
the thing about Cul-de-sac is even watching it now, I'm not sure exactly why it's my favorite movie, but I think what comes through is the atmosphere, and atmosphere
this
can
is
be created
definitely
from so many
inspiring you
things.
for this next film.
Yeah, I mean, atmosphere can be provided through environment, it can be provided through
Oh,
a
huge.
mood or a plot or any sort of thing. But I think when I think of Christmas, I think of this atmosphere of Christmas, and a lot of times, of course, it's a happy atmosphere, but it is this thick atmosphere, and you can use that for a dark movie or a happy movie or whatever. But I mean, you really suck the audience in. I think they feel like they're there, Christmas time, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
As a cinematographer, you watch films. Which director and how they use the camera, which ones inspire you? Or which director?
Well, like I said, I think Kubrick is really the
Right.
one I kind of go to, just because he does know how to capture, you know, the light and the people in the shot so well, and kind of convey the story in just this kind of deep way that I haven't seen a lot of. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Is there a film genre that you're drawn to more than any other?
You know, it's interesting, but I would say horror movies, because I think they're inherently more cinematic. Even though I wrote a movie like Hatchet that has all this dialogue, that's my least favorite kind of movie, actually. I like movies that are more about editing and shots cutting together, because I feel like those are the core building blocks of cinema. And so horror movies, inherently, that's all it is. Once they set up the plot, it is, you know, somebody walking upstairs and shadows and cutting. And so to me, it's more primally true cinema, horror
Right.
movies, yeah.
So horror movies in the sense of more of a thriller, like Sixth Sense type horror movie, or do you want like the blood, guts, slasher?
Well, again, like we were talking about, I think the more you leave to the audience's imagination, usually
Okay.
they can create something. And a lot of times audiences get up in arms about a movie being violent when there's no violence in the movie. So
You know, Lee Marvin, I watched the movie he was in, and he talked about the fact that you really should let the audience's imagination. Nowadays they don't. You know, they show the knife going in, the blood shooting everywhere. It was a scene where this girl was talking to him. She really made him mad. And he took the pot of coffee that had, you know, obviously it was steam coming out, and he threw it in her face. But you didn't see it hit her face. All you heard was her scream.
I
It
think
made
it's
you
a big
cringe
hint. Yeah,
so
I've seen that.
much, and that kind of thing affects me more than actually watching the real deal. So, what question did I ask you?
oh, that
What was
the,
your genre? What's your favorite genre, Michelle? I'm losing it listening to you guys talk. I'm having fun here.
Yeah, it's fun. I think sci-fi I like just in general, because it's so often
Well,
you're given the
2001. Okay,
opportunity.
can you name me another sci-fi that you like?
Yeah, well, I mean, recently the Under the Skin was, because they're similar in a way. It's kind of interesting when we were comparing some of the similarities and the homages to 2001 in that film.
Right.
So it's just a lot of times they allow you more imagination, you know, on your own than some of the more like typical dramas or
Right.
comedies. So
You guys talk a lot about film, don't you?
Yeah, I think
little bit.
inherent in that in the sci-fi
Well, it's good
idea
that you have
too.
that within your relationship, that you can really, you're together on that. That's such a great thing. I mean, that's just awesome that you have that. If you could be the assistant director for an A-list director, who would it be, Brian?
Well, I mean, if I was an assistant director running
It can be
around,
somebody who's years ago or
yeah.
now.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you know, I guess it would probably I'd want to follow Orson Welles around, and
Oh, wouldn't that be
what I like
awesome?
about Orson Welles is going into Citizen Kane, he was completely ignorant about movies and he knew nothing, and so he's going around telling people how to light things, and that's the DP's job. But the DP was following him around taking notes because he thought all these ignorant ideas were amazing because he didn't know
And they were
what
amazing.
not to do. You know,
And they
and they
were
were
amazing,
exactly.
yeah.
So
Right.
I think I could learn a lot from somebody
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
If you could be the cinematographer for an A-list director, past or present, who would it be?
You know what? I have mixed feelings about him, but Darren Aronofsky, he did Pi and Requiem for a Dream and The Fountain. I think it would be a privilege to have worked with him, especially in the beginning, because he started creating all of these kind of low-budget tricks, camera tricks that they were one of the first films to use I think they call it the snorri cam, which is just like the camera that went over your face to get that first-person perspective, and just kind of really inventive techniques.
Right.
So I think that would have been really
So
fun
actually, Brian's got to make a
work
little
with.
bit more money, both of you, so you can have some more toys to play with, Michelle.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
You're looking forward to that, aren't you? Okay, great, great. What A-list actor and actress would you like to work with?
Well, going along with that idea, to start writing a movie, I'd like to know, okay, I have this at my disposal, or I have this. I would love to say I have Jim Carrey at my disposal.
Oh,
something
really?
Like that, because he
Okay.
has this thing he can do that nobody else can do. This wild, he can go off and do these things. And I don't think people
Anytime.
harness that energy properly
Right.
all the time or take advantage of it. I mean, a movie as silly as Ace Ventura, I mean, that's a silly movie, but nobody can do those things.
I actually still like. There's some things in Ace Ventura
I
that
love
I
it.
love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. What actress?
Actress, I think the best actresses in the world right now, for several years, have probably been Julianne Moore and Cate Blanchett. Those two are really good.
Well,
I'd
she
love
just
to work
won the
with them.
Oscar. Kate Blanchett did.
Oh yeah, and
For Blue Jasmine.
there's a great movie she did, Coffee and Cigarettes, where she's just in one part, but she plays Cate Blanchett, and then she also plays Cate Blanchett's jealous cousin, and in the same scene talking to each other. It's just an amazing performance. So,
Right.
Yeah.
What A-list actor would you like to be behind the camera for?
Jared Leto. Because he's dreamy.
Okay.
And also he's a very talented actor.
Okay. He's dreamy.
And he
That's
just
good.
won an Oscar too.
Yeah, he won an Oscar
There you
too.
go.
So there
Right.
you go.
And what A-list actress?
I think I'm not a huge fan of any
Jennifer
particular.
Lawrence is pretty great, right?
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence is
All
pretty
right.
good.
One last quick question. Can you give us some advice to anyone trying to become a filmmaker?
Yeah, I would say the biggest advice is do it.
Just
we were
do
talking
it.
about
Do
this.
it.
Just
Yeah.
do it.
They do it. I'm telling you, I've been there. This guy brings
No
the camera,
excuses.
he brings the sound. They set it up. It's like, let's shoot this. Let's
Yeah.
go. And that's what I love about you is you're like top-notch guerrilla filmmakers, right? How often do you steal locations?
Oh, all the time.
Steel locations.
The one,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should say this on TV. The
Plead
one
the
time I
fifth.
paid for insurance, though, the shoot rained the entire time, so we couldn't use it. So they
Right.
went somewhere else
Yeah.
and just did it guerrilla style.
Okay, we're running out of time. I had a great time with Brian and Michelle, and I'm really glad that you tuned in to Portland Film Beat today. I want to thank my director, Ellery Nelson. You did a great job setting up the studio. I want to thank my wife, Carol, she's the producer. She does a great job getting us all together. I want to thank Michelle and Brian for being here. Their emails were posted. If you want to get a hold of Brian about helping him make his next film, I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, thank you for watching Portland Film Beat, and shoot for the silver screen.
Thanks.